Okay, let's see how quick we can composite together some reference images so that we can do a sketch for one of our animatic frames. I've got an idea in my head for an Aztec temple with palm trees, and our hero, the player, is standing in the scene, maybe turns around, sees an ancient Aztec statue, and maybe he's driven to the temple in an old Jeep. So let's find all those images, but rather than using 2D images, we're also going to look at 3D image sources as well. Okay, so let's start by doing a search on Bing Images. And I want some palm trees in the background, so I'm going to type in palm trees in the desert, although Aztec actually was probably more in jungle, but artistic license here. And then I want to get a decent quality size image, so I look for the 1920 by 1081, and I'm going to say copy image. Okay. Now I'm going to go to an online version of Photoshop, which is actually called Photop, but Photoshop will work just as good. I'm going to say new project, and I want 1920 by 1080, so that's good. Create, and I'll just paste that image in there, and I'm not fussed about the signature on the bottom right. Okay. Now I want to bring in an Aztec temple. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to do a search for a website called Sketchfab, all one word. Okay, you can create an account for this if you want to download 3D models, but in this instance I'm only going to look at the 3D models on the in the browser. So I'm going to type in Aztec, enter, and I think I'll actually be more specific and type in Aztec temple so I don't get a whole bunch of other things. And I've chosen this one. Okay, so I'm getting 3D model, and my actual screen size at the moment is set to 1920 by 1080, so that's handy. So I can maximize this, and now is when I start to think about the camera angle that I want to use for this particular shot. I want it to be slightly lower than eye level, so I'm going to be looking up at my heroic player. If I were at eye level, the player would look a little bit less impressive, so I want to sort of get the camera down slightly lower, but not down at a worm's eye view. A worm's eye view would be right down, the camera would be at the ground looking up. So I'm only slightly low, maybe about waist level. So to do that, I need to also make sure that I'm adjusting the angle of this so that it ties in with that camera angle. I can also rotate around and choose different angles. Okay, maybe if I'm doing a bird's eye view, I could do something like that, and I can use the mouse wheel to zoom out. For another shot, I plan to fly into this. Actually, the prior shot to this would be flying in to look at it from a helicopter point of view. But I'm doing the second shot in the scene right now, so let's reset this. I'm using the left mouse button to orbit around the scene. I'm using zoom to get it a bit bigger, and right mouse button to move it, or I should say pan my camera. That's about where I want it, right about there. I just want to make it a little bit bigger because I want it to be impressive and fill the scene, and I also want to get down a little bit lower. Now I'm going to move my cursor out of the way. Anywhere over here is fine, and I'm going to press the Windows key and print screen. And you can see it just took a snapshot of my screen, and it automatically saved it into my pictures folder, into a folder called screen captures or print screens. Okay, so now I'm done with this one. I can press escape to exit out of full window view. I can close this particular image, and now I'm going to delete temple and type in statue. And let's see what I can find that would be interesting. A lot of the models on here, on this particular website, are scanned with professional laser scanners all over the world. Okay, so it's actually quite a brilliant resource. Some of them are for sale, others are just enthusiasts and hobbyists putting things online. You'll also find models built and sculptures sculpted by digital artists as well. Let me open up to anything Aztec, see what I can find. Okay. If you want something downloadable and you don't want to see anything that's not downloadable, you can click on this button here. Okay, but at the moment I'm not fussed if it's downloadable. I think I'm going to use this one here. Okay, so it's a Mayan relic, so it fits in with my theme. If you have a slow internet connection, this stage right here sometimes takes a little bit of time to render all the full texture. I'm going to maximize this. Okay, bring it back a little bit. And now I really do need to kind of picture my scene in my head. Or preferably you have some initial rough sketches, really small thumbnail sketches in your sketchbook, just to establish your composition. Because here I'm kind of working, I know that I want this to be about there in the scene. I want it to be facing my hero, which is going to be on the camera left over here. And something that feels good, and I can always resize it and adjust it slightly in Photoshop or Photopea. So that's good. Move my cursor away from it, press Windows, print screen. That's good. Now I can press Escape or press this button down here. Okay, close this, and I need one more element. I'm going to type in Jeep. Now I like this technique because you can adjust the camera angle and really spin all around the object just to see all kinds of compositions. Whereas if you only searched for 2D images on an image search such as Google image search or Bing image search, you are completely limited by the photographer's choices. Here you're making your own choices as to the composition rather than being limited by what the original photographer decided to do. Okay, I'm not sure if I want to have the entire front of the Jeep showing or if I want to crop the Jeep in the shot. So that I can have a choice in Photopea, I'm going to include the entire Jeep in the screen grab, and then I can always choose to crop it in Photoshop or Photopea. I'm also going to pause this animation. I don't really see anything animating, but some of the 3D models that are uploaded to Sketchfab are actually animated, so you can pause the animation if you want to. Okay, I'm just seeing if that's the right camera angle. I'm going to get slightly lower, just a little bit. There we go. Okay, and move my cursor, press Windows, print screen, and now I can exit out of this, and I need some figure drawing reference. Now, Ram showed you one technique, and that is to video yourself or film a friend helping you get some great poses, as well as maybe some form of action or motion, and then you can use that in Photoshop or Photopea and trace keyframes, right? So you get an establishment of the different poses in the motion or action. But there's also another resource that I recently found that I think is fantastic, so I'm going to show that to you. And this resource is called PoseMy.art. Okay, so I'll go here, and I'm going to say Open PoseMyArt. And I really don't want anything fancy. I don't want to spend ages designing a character with clothing and features and glasses and everything. I just want something bare bones simple, so I can do a very quick sketch similar to what Ram did with Photoshop on his video. Okay, so I don't want a boring old T-pose because that would look very odd, like he's doing calisthenic exercises. So instead we're going to click this button down here, and then the bottom left one. Okay, and now let's see, I'm trying to remember which it was. I think it was, if I type in idle, the one I was looking at earlier, and then I look at action idle to fight idle. I think it was this one, so let's click on that one. And now let's pause it. And now I know that I want him to be facing the statue, which is in that direction. And I don't really want him fighting in this pose. I want sort of more of the in-between shots. So he's maybe starting to get into a pose where he's about to go on the defensive. Maybe something like that. Okay. Now I know I want him to be bigger because I want him to be closer to us than the Jeep. So if he's that big, I can close this by the way, if he's that big, I don't think he'll be big enough. I want him to be closer to me in the scene. In fact, I want him to be so close to us that maybe the bottom of his feet are cropped, and that'll give us a sense that we're actually really close to the action. So let's do that. Let's get closer with the mouse wheel. Right mouse. I didn't mean to click on him. Obviously you can pose, well maybe not obviously, but I can actually pose him manually, but that's too much effort for this assignment. I think I just want to get him in a pose that I feel like he's reacting to the statue, which maybe has just made a sound or something. I'm imagining in my head what's actually happening with regards to sound as well. So, okay, he's close to us there. And like I said before, I don't know how much I want to crop it. So I could do the cropping in Photopea, right? So make sure I capture everything, and then I can crop it in Photopea. Now, one more thing I need to do before I do my print screen is I want to get rid of this grid. So I go up to this gear up here, and I turn off the ground and turn off the floor grid. Now I've got a nice clean background that I can easily delete in Photoshop. Alright, let's do a print screen of this. And you know what? It doesn't hurt to do a couple. And then you can choose which one you like when you're in Photopea. Okay, so let me show you how this all gets assembled. Here I will insert an image, open and place, I believe it is in this program. And I'm going to go into Temple. And like I said, it is fitting the screen, but I definitely want it to be a bit smaller than this. So I'm going to hold down Shift, hopefully, and shrink it maybe to about there. Double click. And now I can get this magic wand tool, select the background. Oh, it says I can't delete the background because I have to rasterize the layer first. It's a smart object, so I need to go over here, right click it, and say rasterize. Now I should be able to delete and edit the file. And I also want to use the rubber to increase the size. I want to make it a soft brush, really nice, so hardness 0, size maybe something like this. I want a soft brush so that the bit I erase, the edge is a little bit blurry, doesn't stand out too much. Okay, I'm happy with that. We are trying to do this really quick and dirty, fast as we can. Okay, so bringing in the Jeep, same thing. Bringing in the person, exact same thing. Really easy. Position them the way you're happy with them. And then we need to do something important because everything's a different color and it really doesn't feel cohesive. I want to make it so that it feels like it's one scene. I also want to simplify it considerably if I'm going to maybe do a sketch from it or maybe even use it as it is. So the very first thing I do is apply an adjustment layer called Hue Saturation and just colorize it so it's all one monochromatic hue, or black and white if I wish. I just want to give it a little bit of a tint to give it a feel, an atmosphere. I'm also going to bring in the person just so you can see I've got a couple here, but I am actually going to render the background separately from the person so that I can then import everything into Adobe Premiere and generate some camera movement effects like zooming in slowly while the player turns around. But let's render it all as one scene so you can see what the outcome will look like. I also want to adjust the amount of colors you see here. We've got a full range of tone. I want to simplify it to give it a more comic book or hand-drawn effect. So I apply another effect called Posterize, and I set the levels at about 5, so we have 5 different tones. It makes it a little bit more like a comic or drawn. One more thing I want to do is I want to brighten everything up a bit, so I apply a level adjustment, and I do it in this order. Posterize first, then levels, and then the overall change in hue and saturation. So the levels is right here, and I just brightened everything up a little bit, and I also brightened up the statue individually because that came in way too dark. Now that I've got this scene, I can bring it into another program and do some hand drawing, but I think what's really important is that you find your own style for your animatic and your storyboarding. Everybody's a different artist. They have different personal tastes. You really should try out different things. So let me show you one thing I did earlier, which was a sketch, and I just literally spent about half hour, 45 minutes in my favorite drawing app, which is ArtRage, and I just brought in the background and started sketching on top of it. And you might say, okay, well, why don't I just apply a sketch filter? There's thousands of them online you could find for free. But the difference is, when you're looking at it with an artist's eye, you decide what elements to emphasize and what elements to de-emphasize. By using reference material, especially where it's 3D and you can adjust the camera angle, you have a lot more creativity, and it is actually very easy to experiment with things like camera angle and view, as opposed to just finding a whole bunch of still images online and copying them. I think there's more creativity involved in this method. But of course, you can use 2D images that you find online, and you can use 2D images or video that you take yourself. So this is only one method, and I hope you enjoy trying it out.